Everybody, it's Miss Peachy again from your WCA biology class, and today I'm doing a little overview of Unit 3, Lesson 6, Cell Structures. So it's kind of a continuation onto what we were just talking about in the previous video, the different structures or organelles that are found within the cells. So point of clarification to start out here, just looking at the difference between complex cells like eukaryotic cells and simple cells, prokaryotic cells. First, a reminder that the note sheet for this lesson is found on my website, attached to my website, and you can kind of fill this out as you go along with today's lesson. So essentially, the big difference between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell is the lack of what is known as a membrane-bound organelle. So again, as you remember or might recall from the previous lesson, a membrane-bound organelle is an organelle that in and of itself has its own membrane. So like remember, the cell has a membrane and that regulates what comes in and out of the cell. Membrane-bound organelles also have their own membranes, which will regulate what can come in and out of them as well. And it allows like a lot of kind of cool functions to occur because you can get like concentration gradient differences from one side of the membrane to the other side of the membrane, which allows certain cellular processes to actually happen. So it talks about here, we're going to kind of look more specifically at eukaryotic cells. That each individual cell is like a tiny factory. Each organelle is like a different kind of section or a different division of the factory that each has a different job to carry out. But the other thing that's kind of noteworthy here is that there are different, although we have kind of a general animal cell picture here, realizing that, and we're animals too, realizing that an animal cell, this is kind of a generic version of an animal cell, that not every cell in your body looks exactly like this, that there is a lot of variation that occurs within cells, a lot of specialization that occurs within cells in your body, and certain parts of your cells will have more or less of certain organelles. For example, blood cells in our body don't even have a nucleus. They are specialized to transport oxygen, and so they lack a nucleus. Or muscle cells, for example, actually have a lot of mitochondria because muscle cells are needing a lot of energy, and mitochondria, the function of a mitochondria is to manufacture ATP, which is a short-term energy carrying molecule. And so you need a lot of mitochondria to produce a lot of ATP because it's needed more so in your muscle cells than any place else because you use a lot of energy in your muscles. So a lot of specialization takes place within different cells of your body. Plant cells compared to animal cells are very similar, except of a few different things. Plant cells have chloroplasts, which are specialized organelles that carry out photosynthesis, being able to take energy from the sun and water, and being able to, and carbon dioxide, and being able to manufacture their own food from that. They also have a cell wall, which animal cells do not have. That cell wall is made of cellulose, and they tend to have a larger central vacuole with cytoplasm in it, rather than having cytoplasm kind of smaller vacuoles throughout. So just a little differences. So let's go through some of the terminology and some of these organelles and their functions. This is also copied right into your note sheet, so you didn't have to write it all back down again. So we've talked a lot about cytoplasm, but I didn't really tell you what it was. It's this gel-like fluid that fills a cell and allows organelles to move freely through the cell. It also has stuff that floats in it as well, certain ions and molecules and things like that that are needed for cell processes. The cell wall, which is not found in animal cells, it's found in plant cells, actually every other type of cell except for animal cells. It's found in fungi cells as well. It's found in bacterial cells, and it is in plants. It is made of cellulose. It is not made of cellulose in other types of organisms. For example, in fungi, it is made of a protein called chitin, which is different protein than cellulose is made of. Cell membrane, we spent a whole video talking about the cell membrane, that lipid bilayer, that double lipid layer that controls what comes in and out of the cell. A nucleus, right? Only found in eukaryotes. This is one of those membrane-bound organelles. So this is where all the DNA is housed, where we see transcription taking place. It's considered to be the control center of the cell. The mitochondrion. So there's more than one mitochondria. This is where ATP is manufactured. This is a process called aerobic respiration. It occurs in eukaryotes. Some people mistakenly think that this happens in animals but not in plants, but that's false. It actually happens in all eukaryotic organisms, both including plants, animals, fungi, protists. So it's kind of across the board everywhere. Everyone needs ATP. We will spend another lesson going through the process of cellular respiration and getting more detailed study of the mitochondria. Chloroplast, only in plant cells. Again, place where photosynthesis happens, where carbohydrates, the sugar is manufactured from oxygen or from water and carbon dioxide, and oxygen is actually given off as a waste product of photosynthesis. So again, we'll talk more about photosynthesis in an upcoming lesson as well. Ribosomes, we've talked about those guys as well. They are either floating in the cytoplasm or attaching to the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and this is where translation happens, which is where the actual protein is assembled from amino acids kind of being linked together to make that polypeptide chain. We've kind of referred to lysosomes before. These are organelles that are oftentimes called like the recycling centers of the cell. They are membrane-bound organelles, and they are sites of cellular digestion. So remember those vesicles that come into the cell through endocytosis. The membrane that surrounds the vesicle has to be dissolved by the lysosome so that the materials can be released, and then they'll often break down also worn out cell parts so that all that material can kind of be recycled and reused. Endoplasmic reticulum, again, this is where lipids and hormones are actually manufactured. Steroids to make hormones are manufactured. And it says a membrane-bound organelle that is a long tube-like structure that makes folds and moves proteins around the cell. Again, we have rough or smooth. So the smooth one is where the lipids and the steroids are manufactured, and the rough is where we see the protein synthesis occurring. Golgi apparatus, also known as the Golgi body, again, membrane-bound organelle that's going to add things to proteins like sugars and lipids to kind of fully assemble them, I guess, and then package them up in vesicles and transport them around the cell, or then transport them out of the cell through exocytosis. And the vacuole is a membrane-bound organelle that serves as a storage area. It's bigger in plants than it is in other cell types. So it stores water, it stores pigments, it stores other kind of essential kind of ions and minerals and things that are needed for cell functions. So I just go through and kind of review this list, spend some time maybe making flashcards from this. I think this would be a great idea. On one side have the term, on the other side have the definition and which type of cell you can find it in, and really spend some time reviewing these different organelles and kind of what their function is and where you can find them in the cell. So just a brief one today. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one.